What is up, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to a brand new and updated deck profile for the Shaddoll deck here on November 1st. I figured I'd bring you guys the update. Lots and lots and lots and changes from the previous Star Seraph build, which I have since dropped because just wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. I like the Star Seraph's engine in here in theory, but in paper, or like in practice, it's just not working out the way that I imagined it would, and have since made some changes, simplified the engines, and everything seems to be running a lot smoother. So we're going to go ahead and get into this November 2019 Chaos Shaddoll deck profile, but before we do that, I want to mention a quick shout out to our sponsors. First, Imperium Duelist, if you guys are interested in picking up this playmat, or these sleeves that I'm using here, these two-tone sleeves on the main deck, or some amazing dice or calculator cases or whatever you need, gaming accessories, check out Imperium Duelist down in the description below. And if you're buying anything off TCG Player, feel free to use my affiliate link down in the description below all my videos. Click that and check out using that link, and you'll support me in the process, as I will receive a small portion of the revenue from your purchase. But let's go ahead and get into the profile, and we'll start with the Shaddolls. We have a Shaddoll lineup consisting of 2 Beast, 2 Squamata, 2 Shaddoll Dragon, because the removal aspect of this card is pretty important since the deck was lacking removal in other forms. Granted, one could be dropped for a Cosmic Cyclone, which is something I might do going forward. Then we have 2 copies of Shaddoll Hedgehog and 2 copies of Shaddoll Falco, and that rounds out the Shaddoll lineup. So 10 total Shaddolls. It just came down to the fact that, like, I didn't want to draw a ton of Shaddolls, but I also wanted to be able to access Shaddolls consistently throughout the game, because you do have a tendency to burn through these guys really, really fast with little to no way to get them back, since I've decided to drop Daigusto Emerald. I have thought about adding in Jar of Avarice as a one-of, but haven't really tested that at this point, so I can't give any information on that. But I think this is a fair number. The only thing I would ever consider doing is cutting Dragon to 1, again, for like a card like Cosmic Cyclone, that doesn't need to, a card that we can remove stuff with without having to, send Dragon to the graveyard, etc., etc. Even though it is readily available to access, through our engine, but having a standalone card like Cosmic Cyclone would be pretty good. So yeah, 10 Shaddolls, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Liking that lineup so far. And then we'll go into the other stuff. Basically, we have Photon Thrasher, Armageddon Knight, and 2 copies of Mathematician. These are obviously your main normal summons. This is an additional Rhoda target for Rhoda. This is really all it is. It's also a light target, so if you happen to open up like Armageddon Knight with Rhoda, you have an option to go get this for a light and also additional link fodder. Yeah, so just to give you options off of that card. Mathematician, I didn't want to play 3 of this card because it's not that great. Some cases like Armageddon Knight will be better because he's a dark and of his own right. You can use him for fusion material. He's also a level 4, and sometimes Mathematician will be better because you can send any level 4 or lower to the grave. So they both have their merits. And I just wanted to play another Rhoda target, because I felt like having Rhoda in the main deck could be very helpful, since there's a lot of warriors that we can play that help to start our engine, cards like Armageddon Knight, cards like Raiden Hand of the Lightsworn, things like that. So I want to just get extra utility out of that card by adding those in. And then the other lights I'm playing are 2 copies of Damage Juggler and 2 copies of Trick Clown. I didn't want to play the Hat Tricker because opening that card in a bad hand just makes it worse, because if you have to go first with that card, it requires a lot of setup, and if you do open it going second, and your hand's not that great, the fact that you can just freely special summon if your opponent has a field isn't going to help you too much. But if you open Trick Clown, at least you can just use it as light fodder for a fusion and get an extra body on board to be able to link off and get your fusion back with Construct or whatever it may be. So I like this card in here at 2, although I was considering it dropping into 1 for something else, but I figured having just 1 would be too little. That way I wouldn't be able to resolve both Damage Jugglers. But yeah, and then we have 2 BLS. This is a proxy for BLS. 1 just never saw it enough. 2 is a lot better. I think 3 would be a little overkill. So I think 2 is a perfect number, because this card is something you need to see a lot of times to actually progress and win the game, because sometimes your plays against certain decks aren't enough. And also you don't have to go into the extra deck to be able to access a card like that, which is nice. Next, for the spells, we have 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion, the heart and soul of the deck. Absolutely have to max out on this card 100%. And then we have 3 El Shaddoll Fusion. Again, this card is also an amazing card. Starts your turn. If you don't see your regular Shaddoll Fusion, gets your cards out of your hand into the graveyard to be able to utilize and make other plays with. So, yeah, this card, I as much as I hate drawing multiples, like, you just need to see this card. Like, this deck has a very strict, you know, mechanic where, like, if you don't see a fusion, you don't play. I was considering playing 1 Nef Shaddoll Fusion on top of all of these, but I'd probably only play that maybe after the structure deck releases to give more access to different attributes, but right now I feel like it's not necessary. Then for other spells, we have 2 Allure of Darkness for draw power. Also can act as a starter card if we need it to get to other combo pieces. 2 Call by the Grave. This was like a slot that I didn't know what to put in here. This could be anything, these 2 Call by the Graves. They're mainly just obviously the role of the defensive card. Same thing alongside a Super Polymerization. So these could be hand traps. These could be like actual traps if you wanted to. Maybe cards like Impermanence or Ash Blossom, whatever you feel it might be best for you. But I think since this has the opportunity to be able to protect such a vulnerable card like Shaddoll Fusion, I feel like Call by the Grave is a pretty good bet in here. And then we have 2 Instant Fusion. Yeah, and this is also can serve as ability to extend your plays on top of what you already have to be able to get a Shaddoll monster on board, or get a level 4 on board to be able to make a rank 4 play. This can also serve as just getting you Shaddoll to be able to resolve a fusion. This with Mathematician can get you literally any fusion in the deck to your hand that you need. So this card serves tons of roles in here, and it can also act as removal through Thousand Eyes Restrict. So Instant Fusion is an extremely versatile card in here that I didn't want to leave out. And Call by the Grave can also, you know, get rid of cards that are making it so that we can't play. Again, like cards like Ash Blossom that are preventing our Shaddoll Fusion from going through, things like that. So that's it for those. And then we have some one-ofs. We have 1 Monster Reborn, because we do load our graveyard up quite a bit with this deck. So having access to get things back from the grave seems like a no-brainer. I have thought about playing, surprisingly enough, like Monster Reborn, just because, like, again, you have so much stuff in your grave, but again, your opponent would just easily banish your fusions and not give them to you. But I've also thought about Succession, because I wanted to take advantage of the fact that this deck just dumps so many things to the graveyard. Like, if Soul Charge was still legal, obviously you'd play it in here 100%, but Reborn, definitely. 1 Foolish Burial is another starter card. Upstart Goblin. You don't have to play this. I'm just choosing to play it for more consistency. Same thing with Spellbook of Knowledge. Spellbook of Knowledge is interesting because, like, this I'm playing on its own, because we play, like, literally 14, 16 spellcasters in the deck, many of which you can combo off with this card. So, like, per se, if you normal Mathematician, you can send Squamata, Send Beast, draw, and then Knowledge away the Mathematician to draw 2 more cards. So that can net you 3 cards right there, 3 new cards. And it's just literally any spellcaster. This with Instant Fusion can be live, so you technically have 18 spellcasters in the main deck that can make this card live. So it's really good. It's just clear. It can clear, like, that weird Trick Clown off your field that comes back that you had to fuse with, but didn't want to waste its effect. So, like, you can just bring it on the field, make your Knowledge live, draw 2, and draw into more combo pieces. Then lastly, 1 Reinforcement of the Army. Again, this is a card I felt like I wanted to put in here, whether it be for Armageddon Knight or Raiden. But in this case, Photon Thrasher, Armageddon Knight, because Raiden's just kind of RNG. Although it is a light target, it is level 4, it is a tuner, so it does have, you know, open up extra deck plays. Just not plays I was too interested in making. But Rhoda is a nice, you know, card that gives us options. Same thing with Instant Fusion. And then the last card is the Core, because this is a card that we can spring on our opponent during their turn to give us more options for fusion summoning. Gives us an extra dark or any attribute, whether we need it. This could also be, you know, good access for Super Poly. If we don't have any Shaddolls on the field and this is all we have, this can also recycle fusions back. So, like, I think Shaddoll Core is like a necessary card, at least at 1. I feel like 1 is just, I feel like it's the way to go. So yeah, now we'll go into the extra deck, and we have 3 copies of El Shaddoll Construct. I actually did consider bumping this down to 2. I know that sounds insane, but just because like the extra deck space is just getting so ridiculously tight, and I wanted like more utility out of the extra deck, but I decided to sticking out with 3 would just be 100% way better, because you go through this card like there's no tomorrow, and it's basically wins you games. A lot of things in today's game still have trouble dealing with this, although this card like really loses to things that can be destroyed by card effects. So like it does have its flaws, of course. As time has gone on, more and more cards have entered the meta game that can't be destroyed by card effects, which is problematic. Then we have 2 El Shaddoll Winda. This card is literally auto wins against like Salamangreat and some like Thunder decks. They don't see the right card, so like you have to play this card. I think playing more than 1 is the way to go, because you can't instant fusion 1 out, and then you still want to have another one, you know, available for later. And then I'm playing 3 super poly targets in the form of Starving Venom, Diplexer Chimera, and Mud Dragon of the Swamp. This card is great for Marincess and for the Salamangreat matchup. This is good for a plethora of things, and same thing with this. Yeah, just tons of options here again. I felt way too vulnerable after that test stand video we did, that like to Cyberse decks like Salamangreat, decks like Marincess that are all, you know, same attribute, same type, that Mud Dragon was completely useless against. So Diplexer definitely needs to come in. And I didn't want to dedicate to just playing Violet Chimera, because I feel like I'll be playing against a lot of Marincess, so this is good against both of those decks. This, again, is good super poly, good removal target, but this card also serves a ton of utility in the fact that you can instant fusion it. It's level 4. It can switch its attributes to protect cards, to make your fusions live, make it light or dark, whatever you need it to be. Very versatile card for the extra deck. Then the last fusion 1000 as restrict for, of course, that instant fusion access if we need it to be in the form of removal. 4 link monsters here in the form of Boral Sword, Boral Load, Cyframe Lord Lambda, and 1 Link Haribo to be able to link off our Thousand Eyes with. Now, this might seem like a very little like link count, but like again, it comes down to the fact that the extra deck space is so tight. Another card I thought about playing in here was IP Masquerena. But again, it's like, what do I drop? Do I risk, you know, getting locked out by my own Thousand Eyes because I don't play Link Haribo? Do I lose the cards like Borload and Avermax because I don't play Borload? Do I lose games because I can't OTK because I can't play Muddragon, or I can't play Boral Sword? Do I lose the Salamangreat and Marincess? You know, have Super Poly being a dead card potentially by not playing Diplexer? Like, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. I guess some of the next cards I'm going to show you guys, I guess you could argue to cut, but I have my reasonings for why I want to keep them in. 1 Dweller and 1 Castell. I feel like with this deck has a very obvious rank 4 toolbox that it can take advantage of in the form of the Perform Age stuff and Instant Fusion, and the fact that like you have readily like available access to level 4s outside of the Trick Clown engine through like your Shaddoll plays, through like Photon Thrasher and Armageddonite, and like having the ability to make a rank 4 and have options to do so, I feel like is nice. Castell is great for outing cards that can't be destroyed by card effects. Really good in Thunder, and can also act as a way to, you know, get resources like, you know, whatever you detach off this card could potentially come back, especially if you detach like Trick Clown. This can also book your Shaddoll monsters face down. And Dweller's just a card like I feel like you want this format. Again, I could be wrong, but like I feel like this is where if there's any room to cut for other cards, it's with the rank 4s, but again, entirely preference based. So yeah, that's it for the extra deck and the main deck. Now we'll go ahead and do a quick test hand and a quick combo to show you guys how the deck operates. All right, so there really aren't too many notable like dedicated combos that Shaddoll has. It's all based around like what you open, what you have to work with, and basically what your opponent does that decides what type of combos you'll pull off. But just opening Mathematician Shaddoll Fusion, again, this could be Armageddonite, is a really good way to start. And of course, going second, our opponent has access to the extra deck, which most decks in the metagame do right now. So that is an activation requirement we don't need to really worry about, you know, fulfilling. But here I would just start by going ahead and activating the Shaddoll Fusion, which is going to allow us to fusion from deck. And we're going to go ahead and send off a copy of the Damage Juggler and a copy of the Squamata. And then we're going to, of course, go into the Beast. Not the Beast, the Construct. Beast will come later. But yeah, basically, just standard, you know, run-of-the-mill play that I usually do if I can't, you know, make a super overwhelming board, is I just kind of go for this. My usual go-to targets to send off these 2 cards. Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. Squamata is going to send Beast, and then we're going to send Falco off of the Construct, and then Chainlink block the Beast. So we'll send those, and then from here, we will flip this back here, draw an additional card. We drew the BLS. And then from this point, we still have a free normal summon in whatever card we drew. So at this point, we could normal Mathematician. Actually, instead of sending the Squamata, we could just send Beast and just use Construct to send the Beast and the Falco and everything like that. And then we just use this here to dump the Squamata, and Squamata send the Shaddoll. And then at this point, we have our random card that we drew off of the Beast, which would be, in this case, BLS, but different for whoever else. Then here we would banish the Damage Juggler, add that copy of Trick Clown from our deck to our hand. And at this point, it seems like not much here, but at this point, we could link these 2 off into a copy of Lambda, whatever it may be. So let's just say, like, this is Lambda on our side of the field, and they still have, you know, that extra deck monster, whatever it may be. We get to add back the Shaddoll, or we could add back the regular Shaddoll. I like having access to the Shaddoll during their turn because it's going to allow us to make better plays and fusion during their turn. So again, it's just a simple setup. We could leave the Construct on field with the Mathematician, just like this, and then, like, at this point, it comes down to if they attack into any of these cards, we get resources back, we get a draw, we get to flip up this and then reset the Beast. If they destroy this, we get a fusion back, or we have the option of, like, getting L or the Shaddoll fusion back to our hand, and we also have this in hand to be able to fusion with and make plays with next turn. So it's a pretty solid field. Just Mathematician, Shaddoll fusion, always a solid play to start with, and yeah, not too, like, you know, insane of a board to go into, but it's still nonetheless pretty good. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and shuffle the deck and do a random test hand. If you guys want to see more in-depth test hands that I did with this deck, the same build basically, check out the annotated video up in the top right there to be able to see us go second against a lot of the best decks in a test hand video. This one I'll just keep generic for the sake of the video to save time as well. So yeah, I'm going to shuffle the deck a little bit here, and then we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so the deck has been shuffled. Let's split the deck and draw into 6 cards here, as we are going to go second. We draw 2 Call by the Grave, double Instant Fusion, Upstart Goblin, and Super Poly, and our 6th card is a Shaddoll Squamata. So yeah, if we're playing against Thunder, we're in a good spot because we have Super Poly. If we're playing against Salmongrade or Marincess, we're in a good spot because we have Super Poly. If we're playing against Orcus, we're in a good spot because we have Super Poly and they can't literally do anything about it. So it's just insurance policy is all it is at the end of the day. Then here, obviously, I would just start with the Upstart Goblin. We draw into a copy of Falco. This hand is looking pretty rough. The only thing I guess I could say we could do, let's say, if we didn't have to worry about breaking a board, how do we get a play going at this point? Obviously, with the Instant Fusion here, we start with that. And then we're going to go for a copy of Mud Dragon, because we still have 2 other really valuable Super Poly targets in their own right. Then here we would normal summon this, activate Mud Dragon to make it light, and then we go for the Super Poly, and we could discard the Instant Fusion here if we wanted to be able to fusion into Construct. And then we can use Construct, Chainlink 1, Squamata, Chainlink 2. We already have Falco in hand, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's alright because we can still resolve some good effects here. We'll send these, the Beast, and then we'll just send the other Falco out of our deck. Or we could send Squamata. Or we could send, not Squamata, but we could send Hedgehog. Or we could send, or we could send Beast off this, and then, like, a Fusion off of this. So if this dies, we have access to our Fusion. I think that would actually probably be the better play. I think instead of just sending the Beast, which could get us a guaranteed thing, we'll just send the Falco, and then we'll send a Fusion. We'll just send Shaddoll Fusion, and then set this back like that. Yeah, so we already normal summon. If we didn't have the normal summon to make that play, I would have just, sent Beast instead of the Falco and then set our own Falco, but that wasn't the case for us there. So yeah, just construct. We could have super polyed their entire field. We could have removed something via instant fusion. We didn't draw into any fusions there, but luckily super poly was able to make it somewhat playable. Yeah, that was a bit of a rough hand, but what are you gonna do? That's Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes you do have Call by the Grave for a bit of interaction during their turn. And again, if they kill this, we can flip this up and then reset something here. And then if this dies, we get our fusion back for, El Shaddoll, or the regular Shaddoll, and then we draw this for turn, which is unfortunate. But it is a light that allows us to fusion with, so I am looking on the bright side there, because if we, per se, couldn't fuse from the extra deck, we can ditch these two and make a play, or we can just fuse with this and something else from deck, so not too bad. Again, with Shaddolls, it's like fusion or die, that's really what it comes down to. But with that scenario, if that was Salamangreat, we just suck up like their Sunlight Wolf and their Mirage Dalio, make Diplexer, and then like, try to just go from there. Not a whole lot we can do since we don't have access to a fusion. We probably just want to dig for like a Hedgehog and try to set it, or just try to dig through draw cards like Squamata and Beast, and just try to deck thin and draw as much as possible. I think it would have been better to actually save the Upstart until after we resolved the effect of a Construct, because we would have been able to deck thin some other engine cards, be able to get to more powerful cards like our Shaddoll Fusion. So that's another thing to take into account in the ordering of those plays that we made. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this update. I hope you guys enjoy the build. I hope you guys are enjoying Shaddolls. I like this deck a lot lately, and it's really fun to play this deck because I never really got to play it in its prime. So really fun to mess around with, and I think it could be somewhat competitive, especially after the structure deck. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, Winter Kill signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one.